Friends, colleagues and listeners, here we are, a little bit late than later than normal, but just to catch the tail end of the topical news. And this particular show, I think, Stephen, we're going to call Back to Square One or Deja Vu.
Well, yeah, it's certainly not Back to the Future. I don't see much. Hope given what I've heard in the last 48 hours. But Deja Vu, it is indeed, Chris. And what a terrible way to start the week.
It is. I mean, I just can't believe it, Steve. I was booked for a holiday down to South Africa in the end of the first week of January. So that's all gone to pot now. Wow. And then when you see all these search engines showing how the searches for hotels and venues, etc., all over Europe has dropped substantially. And now with people shutting their borders and the announcement that came out last night and this morning, how many countries are actually now showing that they've got this variant in place. I mean, it's such a shame, isn't it? It's such a terrible thing.
Well, it's certainly not looking good in anybody's book. This is bad for business. It's bad for industry. It's bad for humanity, I think, as a whole. And I'm just not sure of. And when I say what's bad, I think the bad aspect is the knee-jerk response and the reaction to a variant that we don't yet know a great deal about, and there is this knee-jerk reaction and response very quickly to close borders when those are still trying to work out and establish. I mean, predominantly and primarily rather, the question is, do we know if the vaccine that we've all had to receive, and some are now on dose 3. Some people I know have had 5 or 6 doses because they previously might have had, vaccines that were not recognized in Europe, for example, they had to be revaccinated again. So, to what extent are the vaccines, doing the job that they expected to, and also, in terms of, what is the effect in terms of hospitalizations or deaths? So it's just too early to tell. In the meantime, we've just gone right back to square one. The knee-jerk response and the Iron Curtain has come firmly back up. And I have to say, very disappointingly, very much now a division between the developing world and the Western world.
Yes,
and I think that is utterly disgraceful.
Somebody,
some of the things I've seen in the last few days called out by presidents and prime ministers of the developed world, essentially saying that Africa didn't get their game together. We're not on point when it came to the vaccine rollout, but we all know very well why that was, Chris. That's because there was not equitable distribution of vaccines right from the outset. And I remember a very candid conversation with you that wasn't broadcast, where I was rather vocal
and enthusiastic
about this sort of vaccine disparity, and that now is being flagged against them. So I think it's really retrograde, it's backwards, it's god awful. Actually, I was thoroughly disappointed by 5:30 p.m. on Saturday night after watching the Prime Minister give his update.
Yeah, no, I agree with Stephen. I think I'm not sure whether what I'm going to say now is accurate, but I think there's been approximately 12.1 or 12.2 billion vaccines produced, which would cover the whole world twice over. And then when you look at some of the countries with the vaccine uptake, which is terribly low, you have to take a balanced approach, because obviously there's some distribution issues and logistical issues and various other issues that aren't as effective in some areas as the others. But there shouldn't be a single dose going to waste, because another statistic I heard was that there's going to be several million doses that are going to have to be destroyed on or before the 28th of December, which would be that's totally unacceptable. So I think everybody's starting to realise now what we were talking about at the beginning is we're all safe only when everyone's safe, and that distribution now and the efforts, people have got to look a little bit further now than their own borders, because whilst you can protect yourselves, everybody is getting so frustrated with not being able to do things. And you look at some of the poor families now stuck in South Africa, even the 2 rugby teams, Cardiff and I think it was Munster as well, they were also not allowed to leave. But, so many people have been affected now. Everybody's got to start coming together, and all this talk about collaboration and sharing and distribution. And I know you said as well, at the beginning with COVAX and everything. I mean, fair play to the UK. They've done more than most, but now everybody's really got to pile in. And even I was listening to Mr. Gordon Brown now in his new role with WHO and what he was saying, talking about.
He joined the WHO, has he?
Yeah. He's some of the stuff, some of the things were making sense, but he still didn't go out and make clear statements and stuff. But everybody now has got to start pulling together, because look how excited we were a couple of, I'm not even sure how many weeks ago, as we were talking about the share prices, aviation and everything going up through the roof. Now, my God, look at the way they tail ended there, at the end of last week, which was terrible. Yeah. So,
it's really disheartening, actually. It's very disheartening. It's very disheartening, Chris.
Yeah. And another thing that's coming with it now, Steve, which I know you don't like, and you don't like for other reasons as well, but they were talking now about fining airlines €20,000 per untested passenger. And interestingly enough, when I came back from Spain, the queues were being held up because people were taking time, like they had it up on their phone, then it dropped off and had to go back in again. And everybody was saying, bring paper copies. So that goes against the sustainability argument, but also some of the documentation and the speed at which these poor people are under pressure at the gates and everything. If they slip up or they see something that they thought was correct and isn't, that's a hefty old fine.
Well, it's punitive, and it's transferring the problem to the private sector once again. The private sector unfairly has to pick up the job of government at every step of the way. Actually, what we want to have is very clear, concise, not guidance. We want policy. We want rules. But we want them to be relative and reflective of the current risk profiles. That means that people can fly, people can travel, people can expect that they're vaccinated. I mean, you look at the high vaccine countries like the UK, for example, and where there's very low vaccine hesitancy. I think upwards of is it 80% now, fully vaccinated in society. Therefore, why should we need to check any documentation? Actually, if we take the 80-20 rule as we do in the rest of life, we accept that 80% of people in any given setting, whether it's a restaurant or an aircraft or an airport, is vaccinated. We don't have to prove it to anybody.
But the trouble is, though, Steve, you look at the other way around now. You got South Africa. I think it's 27% is vaccinated.
But I didn't mention that. I said in these mature environments, Chris, where there is maturity of vaccine and there's very low vaccine hesitancy. If you look at all the problem states of Europe, just go to Hungary, look at Poland, look at Lithuania, look at Slovakia, all got vaccine rates sub 40%. Look at the case burden and the case load per 100,000 or per million, however you want to do. Look where the highest rates are. Well, of course, it's in the low vaccine. It's in the countries where there is high vaccine hesitancy. Even the Germanic nations, look at Germany and and Austria, lower vaccination rollout. So countries like Spain took a pummeling at the beginning because they were slow. I think Spain has something like 4 cases per 1,000, right at the top of the league, and very high vaccination rates. Fabulous job they've been doing.
And masks, Steve, everywhere, even going into a bank.
Discipline.
Yeah, and polite discipline.
Yeah, look, again, I'm not a massive fan of masks, Chris, but as we've said before on this program, I where there is a need to comply, or where there is a law, or where there's a bylaw, I will follow the rules. If I don't have to wear one on national rail trains, I won't wear one. If I do have to wear one on TfL, I do. It's very simple. Just follow the law. But it's for the government to tell people what these what the risks are, rather than just arbitrarily come out with more restrictions on Saturday, which now sees shops back in, people wearing masks in shops again, and the 2-day testing regime re-implemented. You cannot leave the house until you have the result from the day 2 test. I've heard horror stories, people using companies like Randox for example, who get a lot of flack thrown at them, who've not received results at all. What are they supposed to be locked up indefinitely now, incarcerated? It's utterly ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. I've got my booster jab in a couple weeks' time. I've got my flu jab tomorrow. I mean, how much more should I just abandon all of that and just start from scratch again? It's just bonkers.
But it is amazing now, Al, because it's going on so much longer. Lots of argumentation, and even we were talking about poor old Portugal at the beginning. Well, it's Antonio Costa himself now in Portugal who's imposing this €20,000 fine if anybody comes into Portugal mainland without the correct documentation. But also from what's the first? First is Wednesday. There's going to be a lot of more restrictions. So Portugal itself now is looking at this seriously. Then you got Morocco. They're banning flights, direct flights from France as the COVID cases increase across the continent. It's almost like everything's flipping over. It's incredible. And now, Steve, we had so much debate, you and me, in discussion about vaccine hesitancy and, no jab, no job and all this sort of stuff. People have got to be made to have it now. They've got to be made to have it. Because
I'm not sure making people do anything will result in a change, Chris. I think there is yes, absolutely. I will encourage, as I've always said, everybody to get vaccinated. Everybody I speak to that says, "Oh, I'm not getting vaccinated." When I see the horror stories now of that chap who was 41, died this week, waiting for his second dose, and the sort of words of regret from his deathbed, saying, "I wish I got bloody vaccinated sooner. Why didn't I?" And the fella's now dead, left his kids and wife behind. I mean, utterly tragic stories. So if those stories, Chris, are not enough to get people vaccinated, then I don't know what is. I don't think that Boris Johnson putting in a law that says you all must get a vaccine will change it. I think if people are stupid enough and naive enough not to watch the horror that is in front of them from these stories of unvaccinated people dying, a very cruel, horrible death, then I don't think legislation is the way forward. But
there's got to be something, Stephen. There's got to be something done now to shake
things
up.
I think there will be anarchy. Just look at Europe. There's anarchy. There's anarchy in Belgium. There's anarchy in the Netherlands. The police lost control in Den Haag and in Amsterdam last week. I don't condone.
A lot of that is people ready just for a bubble and an opportunity just to go out and disrupt society.
Can you blame them now, Chris? After nearly 2 years of frustration.
Yeah, but there's no justification for that, Steve.
No, I don't condone their behaviour, but people will now revolt. People will say that we've had enough. We have had enough.
Yeah, and from those people, what's the solution that they've got to offer? That's the thing that gets me, is when people go off on these extremes and you ask them for a logical alternative or an outcome, they can't give you one. Well, they can't give you one.
Look, something has to give, Chris. We can't live in a buttoned-up society forever, which is what is about to happen.
We can't, Steve. But it's like anything, So the first thing that everybody's got to do now is they've got to get up, like you said, the 80-20 rule. Maybe they should set that there's got to be an 80% successful vaccination program rolled out, and then start looking at the case numbers and see if it's making that difference. Because for things like this to mutate, to have mutation of virus like this is otherwise it'll just go on, and that'll be. But
these coronaviruses have been around forever.
They have, but
we're not going to get rid of them.
No, of course, Steve, but it's got to get to a point where it's manageable. And it's a very, very, such a shame coming at what everybody was expecting to be a decent Christmas with a New Year outlook that was going to be a lot more positive. So anyhow, now it's up and down again. Turmoil, as we said at the beginning, deja vu, back to bloody square one. So where does the good news come from? Now, Menzies and easyJet. There's one. So Mr. Fordree and all the rest of the team and everybody there, they've extended a long-standing ground service relationship with easyJet. So 21 airports across Europe. So there's something positive for a little shout out for Menzies. We haven't mentioned them for a long time, Steve.
We have not. I'm probably due Mervyn a catch up. We haven't spoken for a long time, so no time like a Christmas beer to be arranged. However, subject to travel restrictions, I suspect.
Yeah,
but we should get Mr. Walker out for a pint at some stage.
Yeah, no, that would
I did see
good.
them. I did see the entire executive management team of Menzies with Philippe and Mervyn and John Geddes and all. They were in, I think, Schiphol last week at the cargo warehouse. So obviously, as some of the, again, it's all about being back on the floor. I mean, Mervyn was never one to shy away from the shop floor, Chris. In fact, I think Mervyn would probably tell you himself if he's not already on your podcast, because you've done a couple with Merv.
Had a couple with him, and they're always good. They're always good. Fair play with him.
Is there much filtering of language that has to go on?
No, it's good now. It's good now. We had a good. The second one was very, very good, and it'd be nice to have him again. Actually, he's always.
I would say in true Mervyn style, he's very much back to the shop floor. I mean, Mervyn would much rather spend time out in the operation on the ramp or in the warehouse, and I saw he managed to get all of the exec along to Amsterdam. So I think that's indicative of some strong management and leadership behaviours that hopefully will be predicated not just at that level of organisation, but across the organisation in whichever leadership role people are in. Understanding
and that's what people need to see, Steve. They need to see people leading by example.
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, your business is all about score on the floor. It's like
absolutely.
Don't matter how good a manager is or a CEO or the development.
Indeed.
Gurus, if it's not happening on the pitch, on the floor, then look what happens. So,
well, in fairness, we should probably call out Swissport there, because I've seen, obviously with Karen Cox joining them recently as the new global head of operations. She also has been out and about, meeting people, and I saw in the Heathrow warehouse, Chris, a place you'll know fondly. In the last week or so as well. So I think there's a lot of that happening, and it should continue in great doses across the board. Yeah,
no, it's good to see It's good to see this, isn't it? And like Warwick did, lots of face to face and traveling around and meeting his teams. That's what people want to see. So it's good. Yeah. It's good. Very good. Yeah. Then who else is there? I wanted to give a shout. Oh, Mallaghan with their new Árbus 50W airport bus, so the high capacity airport bus capable of carrying up to 118 passengers, and available in diesel and electric. So that's good. That's great stuff.
Is that the one? Is that the one they worked with Ryanair on?
I think was it with Ryanair? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. I think there was one that I think that Ronan would shoot me, or Owen would shoot me if I got this wrong.
Yeah. I'm not sure whether it's one.
But I'm sure. I think Niall said to us before that they'd worked with Ryanair on building this new bus, but I could be wrong. The other one, of course, that is interesting on that sort of same GC front is, in terms of care, Chris, a word that you like to use a lot. One of the challenges has been the handling of PRMs, wheelchairs. And when I say a wheel, I mean an electric wheelchair for those paraplegic, for example, who sadly has got they use the wheelchair essentially as their leg. It's their mobility tool. But as you know, as a ground handler, they're very sensitive, and they're also very, very heavy. These wheelchairs, and the guys at Aviramp, Graham Corfield and his colleagues down in Telford, have managed to build a bespoke tool for the bespoke handling of these heavy wheelchairs. So shout out to Graham and his team down there.
There's some incredible innovations now, and people who sit there and they look at something, they think we should do it differently. I love that. I think it's awesome. And what they do, and also making things more comfortable for the driver and visibility, and also adding extra elements to the way the turning radius is done and everything. I just find these people who sit there, they're real. I mean, they've got to be applauded. It's fantastic. Absolutely. Brilliant. Yeah. Now, we were talking earlier, Steve, and several times now, everybody, and I don't mean to say rattles on, but there's an awful lot of people talking about green. Great. It's great to be seen to be green, but most people don't understand what green actually means and the restrictions and the, the barriers. But I think there's an opportunity now for anybody at ground level in a company. It's a little bit like, when it first started, when everybody started, having 2 or 3 bins in their kitchen where they started recycling everything, and people say, "Oh my God, how can you have the patience to do that?" And you see some people actually clean things out and put them in. But fair play to them, because they were doing it for themselves. And then gradually people started to be satisfied with what they were doing. And then it started to take off. And now you go to the dumps and everything. I mean, everything's segregated and structured and put in place. But I think that's the way we should be addressing the green issue now, so that people can actually see that by doing certain things in their own workplace, etc., it's making that difference, rather than keep having these people out again on the banks of extremism saying, "You've got to do this, you've got to do that." I just find that it's not helpful at all what's going on.
No, for sure. It's like those sort of, dare I sort of draw a parallel to the auditors who act more as policemen than auditors.
Oh God. Or admin checklisters.
Yeah, checklister, who love to slap tickets on things but provide no support or advice or counsel to those that are doing the job and how to improve and how to better themselves. And I always remember the best audit closing meetings I've had, Chris, is when I've had auditors who will sit there and yes, go through the findings, but actually they will also do it objectively and pragmatically and suggest alternative ways of conformance or alternative ways of meeting the compliance requirements. And because the station team often say, "Well, we don't do it that way here." So, well, okay, we might not do it that way here, but I've got an alternative that you might want to, different ways to skin the cat, and which is alternative means of compliance, which I always think was rather pragmatic for these auditors. But too many of them, Chris, slap tickets on things and walk away like a policeman and expect you to fix it and you to pay the fine.
No, I agree with you, and that happens with internal auditors as well. A little bit of power, and
I would say even more so.
Yeah, they get a little bit carried away, which is crazy. But somebody who's a good coach and a mentor and wants to see people improve, that's the way it should be done, which is brilliant. Also, something that I find irritating over the years that I've been there, but Swissport now, there was a little announcement out there. They've partnered up with Speedcargo, with a digital push to increase utilization of cargo space. So it's looking at DIMs and weights and all sorts. And it's good that they're doing that now, because there's so many tools there. But it's the right thing to do now, because so much revenue dilution and loss because of the time pressures that we've got with acceptance and everything. And now ground handlers need to protect every single euro, dollar, pound, penny, whatever it is, of revenue that's coming in. And the industry needs to do it correctly. So I think that's great. I'm pleased they're doing that. Yeah. So again, that's good. So fair play to them. Now, what else, Steve? Anything else? Good.
Well, good. Struggle this week, Chris. To be honest with you,
it's so demoralising.
It's utterly demoralising. Utterly demoralising. When I look out my window here and it's pitch black and it's not even 5 o'clock, that's also a little bit demoralising and depressing. But the combination of the dark, the cold, the wet, the sleet, the rain, and the new COVID measures, I think is it would take even the most or the best optimist, who's got not only the glass half full, but glass is full all the time, to see their way through this now. I think people will be cautious. People will be nervous. Airlines will be reassessing capacity to put back into the market. I think there's a real danger we're going to go slip back here very, very quickly. And we know always that this time of year is tough for every airline, typically. In a COVID environment, even more so. So I'm really struggling actually since Saturday's announcement. I find it utterly depressing.
No, it's such a shame. I've seen a lovely cartoon of Father Christmas coming down the chimney, and as he was coming down the chimney, this grid went halfway across the chimney, and there was a little boy with his little sister at the bottom, and he shouted up, he said, I need to see your PCR test. Where have you been? What houses have you been to? And she said, you're not coming in here, Father Christmas, unless we know you've got a clean bill of health. And, but it's tongue in cheek and it's a bit of fun. But
the other end of the spectrum, I saw one today, which was so akin to the papal selection by the cardinals in Vatican City, which was the smokestack, the chimney stack in Wuhan, and the smoke rising from the chimney in the industrial area in Wuhan, and them saying, a new virus has been declared, a new variant has been declared.
Yeah, No, it's.
I'd rather the black smoke come out for that event, but it was white. But there we go. There's some pretty good netizens out there with some very good senses of humor who are great at this stuff. Very creative. Yeah.
You can't get away from that. But again, now, so a little bit of unsurety now. People need to be upskilling, cross-skilling, and preparing because please God, this will eventually subside a little bit to let some normality come back. But it's amazing that people have accepted. It's almost 2 years, Steve, that's gone now.
Oh, it's utterly ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. I can't believe it. I mean, this is just mad. Absolute madness. I for the last 6 months, in a degree, I'd say probably the last 3 or 4 months predominantly, but people started to come out, feel better again, start traveling, confidence grew. Normal behavior started to return. People are hugging in public, shaking hands, that whole sort of are you a fist bumper or a handshake or an elbow or that whole little dance that people were doing. I said, no, I'm a handshaker. And so, all right, you're a handshake, great. This sort of all this normality started to come back. And I just it's desperate. It's utterly desperate. So as we've had a little taste of normality over the last few months, there are those around us that want to take it away again.
Yeah, that's right. Cruelly pulled back again under the table. Yeah. Well, listen, mate, we'll catch up again. But I've got a topic for you for next week's show, irrespective of whether the news is good, bad, or indifferent, because I think we've got to get away from from talking about these same old ailments. We're like a couple of I am anyhow, not talk about you, but it sounds like a couple of old boys in an old people's home saying, how's your ankle today and your knee and your, we've got to get above this. So I've got a nice little tasty subject for you for next week. And I've also
I'll let you know how my ankle is tomorrow after my MRI scan.
Yeah.
I'm very topical.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. And I'll let you know because I've had another like 5 or 6 questions that came in to pitch to Dr. Dickson. So we'll do that next week. Anyhow, listen, take care of yourself. Have a good week. And let's hope for a bit of good news during the week.
Indeed. Cheerio.
All the best, lovely boy. Take care.